Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome along to this round number 6 here in Suzuka, Japan for Season 5 of the FRS in PC Division 1. Around this historic circuit then is going to be the site of our battle today, and it features the only figure of 8 layout in the entire Formula 1 calendar, and certainly within the FRS as well. Let's have a look at the circuit then. 5.8 kilometers or 3.6 miles around this 18-turn clockwise initially, then anti-clockwise circuit. We've got also just the one DRS zone here down the start-finish straight. The rest of it is all the tight and twisty bits that you can see there with a bit of elevation as well. It's the only circuit on the FRS Season 5 calendar to feature just that one DRS zone as well. So, be having a look out on this start-finish straight for the moves to happen. This 405 metre from pole to turn 1 is also the second longest of the FRS season. In turns 1 and 2 in particular then, we've got the opportunity for people to get side by side down there, maybe have a look up the inside on these two right-handers before we then head up into the S's, where it's very much going to be single file through there. Then further around the lap at turn number 11, we've got the hairpin, and this one here is going to present a good opportunity for cars to dive down the inside or maybe try and carry an extra bit of speed around the longer outside line. And then, of course, the monster turn 130R. Of course, not much of a challenge these days, but think back to when Fernando Alonso went round the outside of Michael Schumacher around here, and certainly it can be a bit of a tricky one in the wet. Down here then at the Casio Triangle, the final chicane of the lap. This, of course, the site of many incidents over the years, including, of course, the famous dust-up between Senna and Prost in 1989. In terms of the tyre compounds, we have our soft, medium and hard as usual, with the soft being the fastest, medium being 0.6 of a second slower per lap, and then the hard being 1.1 seconds slower. So, with all of that out of the way then, let's have a look down at the track and go into qualifying. And so, with all that out of the way, everybody, welcome. We'll just dial it down ever so slightly whilst everybody's going on their outlaps and into the pits and so on. My name is Daniel Gilligan. I am your lead commentator for this evening, and alongside me in the virtual comm box and virtual control room is Sean Provenza and Dr. Stark. Gentlemen, how are we doing this evening?
Oh, quite good. It's good to be along for the ride as we head into a very tricky driver's track for sure. It's a very difficult track to overtake on, but this qualifying session is going to be super important.
Absolutely, yeah. With all the difficult opportunities for overtaking that we've seen over the course of this weekend, I wouldn't be able to disagree with you on that one. Stark, what are you thinking on this one?
Absolutely love Suzuka. It was not my favourite track on 2020, but after doing the Div 3 race and some practice around it, it's fantastic. It's such a driver's track, and if you can really nail a lap, it not only feels good because you've set a fast lap time, it also gets your blood pumping and your body going, and it just feels great to get a good lap in. It's not the best for overtaking, but the DRS is pretty powerful here, so if you can get a good exit out of the final chicane, then overtaking is definitely possible.
Absolutely, yeah. So, with everything going on then, at the moment we've got a number of cars on their outlap, a few cars on their outlap now, with the vast majority of the field currently on their time lapse. We've got Raptor currently heading the field at the moment, first in terms of track position. Or maybe I'm lying. Yeah, I am lying. At the end of Sector 2 then is Charlie Chibbles. They're now heading around 130R down towards that final chicane, and now up towards the line there will go. And we'll have to wait and see what this first banker time is from Charlie Chibbles. Of course, one of our race winners this season. It's a 128.4. Very good opening salvo. Back to Raptor then. They're going to be the next across the line in that red Ferrari car. And the Ferraris have certainly seen some success across the FRS this weekend, but on this occasion, it's only P2 and then P3, a 129 there for Raptor, 129.8 in fact. Massimo Romeo goes 129.0 and Elliott goes 129.6, but Spike now jumps to the top of the standings with a 128.2. We've got Booth now setting a good time as well, 128.6. So we're going to have a few cars just banging in times now because, as I say, the vast majority of them all out on their laps at the moment. MJ Povey, winner last time out, of course. Now in another different car, the Alfa Romeo this time, because Naktrak is not taking part this weekend and has set another 128.4 there, same as Charlie Chibbles to the first decimal point at least. So let's have a look and see what everybody else is doing. So we've got Luke currently coming around the final corner now. They, as Fraser sets a new time, 128 dead. That is a good effort. And then half a second back is Luke. So there we go. Luke, then, one of these drivers who's had a very, very good season so far, very consistent. And if not for their DNF in Belgium, we might even see them potentially higher up the standings. Because whilst Spike currently leads the way in the championship with 2 wins, more than anybody else in the season so far, Fraser has got the second place with 1 win and 2 second places to their name. But Luke, as I say, very consistent performer. 2 thirds, 2 seconds, and that 1 DNF. So if they'd been able to get a similar result instead of a DNF, then they may well be fighting with those guys right now, because after the 2 wins, Spike has not finished on the podium, and Fraser's 2 worst results are 4th and 5th, much like Spike's are. So it's all to play for at the moment, especially in that battle for the top 2, because they're on level points as well.
Yeah, consistency has definitely helped them out in the overall championship fight, but Fraser right there at the top, 2/10 clear of the field, as most of the field has gotten their first laps in. A few invalidations, which can happen here around Suzuka. The track limits may become a bit of an issue, but of course, somebody who's fought with the track limits just very recently is Mr. Stark. How are you finding the track limits around the track?
They're honestly not too bad. The main thing to watch out for is the curbs through the S's and through Degma 1 and Degma 2. If you hit those at the wrong angle and light up the rear tyres, you will go for a spin, and most likely you'll end up in the gravel or the barriers. But in terms of track limit penalties, that's not too bad. I didn't manage to get any when racing, and I usually pick up more than my fair share of them. So Japan, Suzuka, I like this track in terms of track limits.
Good stuff, good stuff. So, with that all being said and done then, we've got Major Castleman on screen at the moment. No, we don't. We have King Bart. King Bart now on an out lap, just in that McLaren. One of the last few who will set a time, I'm sure, for this first run. And they've not got much time to get the rest of their session done with, because, of course, with our short qualifying format that we've got here in the FRS, if you are new, then I'll briefly explain it. So, we have a good 17, 18 or so minutes of qualifying, and then at the end of that qualifying, the top 10 drivers will then start the race on the tyre they set their fastest time on. Everybody else outside the top 10, of which we have 9 of those drivers this weekend, almost a full grid, then with those guys, they will find themselves able to choose whatever tyre they would like. And it's my understanding, I mean, correct me if I get this wrong here, Stark, but because of course you're going to know a bit more about this than I, but medium to soft strategies, the stronger one here, I've been told.
Yeah, medium soft is pretty easy to do. You want to be patting probably anywhere from like lap 6 to lap 10. The undercut is also fairly powerful. The hard tyres surprisingly don't feel so bad. They can probably go from lap 2 if there's a very early safety car, but otherwise it's just going to be medium soft or soft medium. If you finish outside the top 10, it's always worth going for the alternate strategy if you don't have track position. The main thing that really hurts the soft tyres and the medium tyres is just trying to keep the tyre temperatures under control through the S's and through Spoon that King Bart's going through at the moment. They'll regularly exceed 100 degrees, and if you try and put the power down, you'll just end up spinning. So it's something to watch out for, particularly as the tyres get older and older.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, indeed. And in terms of the split across divisions at this point of the season, do you think that there's much between Div 1, Div 2, Div 3, that sort of thing at the moment? Because, as has just been pointed out, as King Bart crossed the line, goes 1:29.7 and into 14th place, with your own qualifying time earlier on, and I shan't spoil whereabouts you qualified, but you would be P6 right now.
That is true, but track evolution plays a big part here. Ice Kid Man and my times were set right at the end of qualifying. Literally, I think we crossed the line with like 20 seconds to go or something like that, and there's still 9 minutes. So I expect the track to ramp up a bit. I expect quite a few more drivers into the 28 tier. So there's probably, I don't know, like 6/10 or something like that between the top of probably the top of Div 1 and Div 2, and then there's maybe like half a second between Div 2 and Div 3. That's the last time that I looked at the standings. But I'm always happy to be proven wrong with these kind of things.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're talking about track evolution. There's one driver here who certainly seems to be benefiting from some track evolution, but now they've got a Mercedes right in their way. Oh, what on earth has happened there? Oh, dear. Is that Spike or was that Max? Because Massimo Romeo there, I was about to say, 2 purple sectors on this lap so far. And then, all of a sudden, at the final corner, the Mercedes just decides to
Fraser's
sit
gone around in the
way.
hairpin as well on his hot lap, so mistakes in a few different areas.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a horrible set of circumstances. I don't think it was Spike here, was it? I think that it may well have been Max, just based on where they are on the circuit. If we go to Max right now, whereabouts on circuit?
He's just coming through the S's, but apparently the broadcaster's curse in full effect. I was on Massey when he was blocked, then switched to Fraser, who spun, then switched to Spike, who invalidated his lap.
Well, maybe we just need to prioritize those who we don't want to win. Then, so don't look at Gibbles.
Okay,
Don't look at Gibbles with your track record. We want to see someone else clearly.
We'll go to Povey. He's winning too much in Xbox Division 1.
Ah, well, there we go. Yes, there we are. So we'll go on board with Povey then as they go through their timed lap at the moment, and we'll see how they fare. In terms of these timings, then, things are pretty close throughout most of the field, but then, of course, you get, well, actually, I say most of the field. I should more accurately say from about 3rd down to 7th. It's very close indeed. Only about a 10th or 2's improvement would catapult people up the order there. And then in terms of is it no Tanfana, I'm only saying don't look at Chips because I want Chips to do well, because I find him quite charming. I'm rather partial to him. Anyway, we're not biased at all here in the commentary box. So in terms of these guys then, so Povey dives into the pits actually rather than setting a time, interestingly, so perhaps they'd already made their attempt this time round. In terms of everybody else then, we've got some decent times out on the board at the moment. Screeper, the only driver not to have set a time at this point. Raptor, the driver that we're currently on board with, they are on a timed lap or on an in-lap, one of the two. We've got Booth currently on an out-lap, Screeper on an out-lap as well, and these guys then certainly ones who've got pace, and I think that in the case of Booth, certainly just a 10th or 2's improvement, which is relatively easy to find with track evolution, should mean that they get themselves an opportunity to jump up the leaderboard just a little bit. But I do feel massively for Massimo Romeo. They had the makings of an absolute stonker of a lap there, and for whatever reason, the Mercedes, I suspect of Max, just based on their track positioning of the 2 Mercedes, after the incident, but yeah, just getting in the way there, just spinning Massey round. So Booth will cross the line, and tell you what, can I request that we go on board? We'll talk through this lap. So down into turn number 1 and 2 then. Through these corners we go, and it's the couple of right-handers there, so just keep the car going in the right direction, and then you're fine. Then we've got the S's, so making use of those apex curbs nicely in the first couple of parts, and then the second 2 curves here, we've just been that little bit off of the apex again with the final one, but at least as we've driven out over the top of the hill, we've not then spun out or gotten too wide off of the side there. Through Degner 1 and then Degner 2, and the car seems nice and balanced here under Booth's control, and now up towards the hairpin we go then. So braking hard here. What sort of line is taken here? It's an early apex, and we drive out on the exit all the way up to the curb. We then head down now on the long run towards Spoon, and keeping tight to the inside the whole time, not allowing the car to drift off to the left. And now through Spoon Curve we go then. These couple of corners make up the sequence, and now it's the power down the hill and then back up the hill towards the 130R corner. So how are we doing? We'll find out in just a moment as they cross over the timing sector here. They're 2/10 up on their best time currently as Booth, so things looking good for them to jump up the order a bit here. Through 130R, taking a nice tight line through the final chicane. And it looks good at this stage. So through the final corner, will they keep it nice and tight? They do. Little bit of oversteer though, getting on the power, and then across the line, P3 for Booth.
It was a good solid lap there to put it all together and get some very good timing that time around. So really solid run through there. Had a little bit of time probably to gain through the S's. The curbs are definitely tricky around here. However, in the S's, you can very much commit to those curbs if you essentially straddle the red and white curbing and put it near the middle of your car. If you're only halfway putting just a tire on, they are just about an insta-spin curb. But otherwise, you can be very aggressive with them on the best laps.
Absolutely, yes indeed. So, brilliant effort from Booth there. I think it's fair to say. I don't think anybody would what's the word? My words fail me. But I don't think anybody would try and take that lap away from him. That was a very, very good effort. Puts him just 3.5 tenths off the top time. So, we've got Massey on board once again then. They've managed to make it through the hairpin relatively easily there. They've got a little bit of traffic up the road from them, so we just want to be careful that we don't get into the situation we did last time, and it's 3 cars all going in a queue with one another. We've got a McLaren first, and then a couple of blue dots, so unfortunately, because of the fact that all the blues are the same in this game, I can't really tell who's who. But we've got them now all the way to the inside, strangely enough. It's a purple sector, though, for Massimo Romeo. So through 130R they go. This time the car dives out the way for them and into the chicane rather they go. Through the final turn, and what's this going to be for Massey? Are they going to have a good time? Is it going to be a good attempt? Oh, it's a bit of an improvement, but maybe not the improvement we were hoping for there. Not with a purple second sector, and what we saw from them earlier on. 7 tenths off the top time currently.
Yeah, it looks like he lost a little bit of time with that one car trying to dive out of the way coming into the chicane. He was up about 3.5 tenths through the Sector 2 split and only improved by just over 2 tenths at the final. So some time lost compared to his previous time in the final sector there.
Absolutely, and you can see these gaps here on the screen at the moment. We've got Spike just about 2 tenths off, and then Booth 3.5 tenths, as we said earlier on. Povey and Chips both on their outlaps at the moment, and both just about 4 tenths shy, and 4 tenths certainly possible around here. I mean, Stark, you were saying earlier on to us before we started the stream that you found, correct me if I get this wrong, but was it 7 tenths on your second run?
Yeah, on my last run I found about 7 tenths of a second, so the track evolution is significant. It's also worth pointing out that I don't think I made a mistake on my last run, and I was physically shaking afterwards, so that was about as fast as I could have gone. Yeah, don't take it as like each driver is going to fly in 7 tenths, but I fully expect, you know, the likes of MJ Povey, Fraser, and Spike to be in the 27s here.
Were you like? So basically, you're saying you were Ayrton Senna. I was no longer driving conscious, or something like that. But there we go. If you've not seen the Senna documentary, by the way, definitely go watch it. It's a great watch.
Spike picked up a nice slipstream behind the McLaren there, is improved by nearly 3 tenths at the second sector split. Has to only make up 2 tenths for provisional pole coming through the final corner. Here he comes. 3 tenths of improvement. He's up into the 27s, a 27.95. So that McLaren really helping him out on what will be his last run.
That will be, yep. That is going to be the last effort for Spike this time around then. And we've got just a few seconds left to go. We managed to see that briefly before another yellow flag notice came up. There we go. That's the end of the session. So everybody currently on a run is going to need to finish off in a good spot here. And Fraser may well be getting blocked ever so slightly by the car ahead of them. And would you believe it's another Mercedes? So it could be the opposite situation here. It could be that maybe Max ends up holding up Fraser rather than helping him, but and it looks like they've done it all on their own. We've got we've got the Mercedes off in the background as well. So Fraser won't improve this time. Let's have a look and see who else is on a lap at the moment. Have we got eyes on Povey, perhaps, so we can have a look whereabouts they are and how they're doing.
Up to P3, it looks like. Povey about to cross the line. He's improved up to third.
Yeah, improves with now just 2 tenths off of that best time of 127.9. Chibbles will now come through the final few corners. Whereabouts will they stick their Williams? Will it still be P5 or will it be improvement? And it looks like it is improvement. Yes, Charlie Chibbles will line up in P4 just ahead of their teammate. Massimo Romeo improves once again, but only to P6. We've got Luke then still on a timed lap. Their teammate Dolphy goes P5, splits the Williams. In fact, as it is, whereabouts is Luke on Circuit I Wonder? We've got King Bart going into the pits, so they will not improve from 9th place. Same for Cavino. They go into the pits, will not improve from 11th. And it looks like Luke as well. So that is your qualifying order, everybody. So Spike takes pole position at the Japanese Grand Prix here in PC Division 1, and then Fraser will line up alongside. Then we've got MJ Povey in third, with Charlie Chibbles alongside them in fourth. Then from fifth down we have Dolphy, Booth, Massimo Romeo, Luke, King Bart, Major Castleman, Screeper, Cavino, Raptor, Timalele, Riso, Immigration, Elliott, Max, and then back row at the back of the grid. On the back row. There we go.
Yeah, it was interesting what happened between Max and Fraser coming through 130R. It looked like both were on a flying lap, just Fraser carrying much more speed than what Max is, and it looks like Max just dove straight into the runoff coming through 130R, maybe hoping to stay out of the way or perhaps a mistake. But then Fraser just kind of followed him off in sympathy, it looked like.
Yeah, I think Fraser was getting out of the way of the car behind, to be fair, and I think Max may have made a mistake, which caused them to be a lot closer in somewhere in Sector 2, because Fraser lost 1.5 seconds in Sector 2 alone there. So I wouldn't be surprised if that goes to the stewards or something like that.
Absolutely. So there we are then. Now we've got just 30 seconds to go then until we start to load up into the race lobby itself. We'll just run through that order for you one more time then, in case you may not have been paying attention, or maybe you may have miraculously shown up to start watching now. If you have, hello. We'll run through these very quickly now in the last 15 seconds. So we've got Spike on pole, then Fraser, MJ Povey, Charlie Chibbles, Dolphy, Booth, Massimo Romeo, Luke, King Bart, Major Castleman, Screeper, Cavino, Raptor, Timalele, Rizzo, Immigration, then Elliott, then Max, and then back row rounds out the grid. So there we are then, and that's back row saying in chat, would have loved to do a lap on softs, but a driver ignored the yellow flags and caused me to DNF. There we are then. That's not what we want to see, but we'll have to wait and see how things turn out for them in the race itself. It may well end up being a good opportunity to fight back on an alternate strategy. So, back row, if you're still listening, keep your head up. I'm sure you'll have an opportunity. And we're also seeing that apparently Charlie Chibbles is now representing Cyprus. I've no critique of that. Cyprus is a lovely place with lovely people.
Yeah, it looks a little overcast on screen there. Doesn't early reports that there wasn't a threat of a rain, but it does help the track stay a little bit cooler. And as Stark was saying in qualifying, keeping those front tire temperatures in line is actually very important. So this should help them out just a little bit in that regard.
Absolutely. So let's have a look then at the tyres that we've got on the cars at the moment. That will give us some sense as to who has gone for what in terms of their strategy in this race. So back row immediately stands out as the only driver in the field who has decided to start on hard tyres. So they are going to be having a good old time. In terms of that hard tyre, it's not very pleasant, but it won't degrade, at least not in a significant way. So they'll be able to get nice, consistent performance from it. And if they're able to avoid all of the shambles at turn number 1, then they should be in a good position after that. Then in terms of 11th place Screeper, who we can see on screen now, and then we've also got Cavino, Raptor, Rizzo, and Max, all starting on the medium tyre. So things are looking like they'll be they will be a little bit slower off the line, granted, because they won't have that same bite into the tarmac as the softs will, because even though the softs have run on those top 10 drivers' cars for at least one lap, then things are looking positive for these guys. Yeah, sorry, my concentration has just gone through a temporary dip, but I'm all back now, I promise. So everybody just circulating around through the grid then. If you were in, say, Screeper's position, Quimbulus, I'll go to you first, Sean, rather. Then would the medium tyres be your strategy starting from 11th?
The undercut is pretty powerful here, but also, the alternate strategy equally powerful. It would depend on whether I thought I could race with the car ahead of me, just kind of knowing your competition. If he feels like he can keep up with the back end of Major Castleman on the medium tires, then it's a great strategy to try and really launch your way up through the field when it comes time to the pit stop phases. But you've also got to manage those medium tires and make sure that the pace stays good, because You won't see the switchover where the mediums start becoming quicker than the softs until about 6 or 7 laps into the race, and at that point it's only a lap or so further until the soft tire runners get off of those. So we'll see how it does. I mean, it could go either way. It's just about knowing who's around you.
Absolutely. So, with everybody lining up on the grid, then we have a shot of the exit of the pit lane. Thank you, Codemasters. And we're getting ready for everybody to get going in this 27-lap race. I'm hoping that we will see a different camera angle once the game decides that we're now in the race session rather than in the formation lap. There we go. We've now switched to the race. We're on lap number 1. We will be in just a few moments' time. 5 red lights. Finally, we have a shot, and away we go. MJ Povey gets a decent start. It's a decent start from all the top 3, in fact. A good start from Fraser, despite being on the dead side of the grid. And down into turn number 1 they go. It looks like things... Oh, no, in the background. That's one of the Red Bulls. That's Luke. Luke having a half spin there across the grass and dropping down the order massively there. There was someone else involved in the outside, but I didn't quite see who it was. I saw the Red Bull going around. It may well have been this driver here, Massimo Romeo, who's dropped down all the way from P6 to P9 in that first corner exchange. A 5-second time penalty for Massimo Romeo as well for corner cutting and then gaining a position as well as a result of that. So that's not what we want to see for them, and that's to add to their qualifying woes. Unfortunately, it's now a race uphill for them, it seems. But everybody else seeming to get through that relatively unscathed, and Spike leads the field.
Yeah, unfortunately, it might have been Massey and Luke coming together in turn 1, and that might be why he has that 5 seconds, is if they both spun off track and he had to overtake Luke to avoid it and then had no chance to try and give that position back because Luke was 5-6 places back, and once that timer's up, you're going to pick up that 5-second penalty. But away at the front cleanly, the midfield pack, as usually happens, just gets a little bunched up. There's not much of a braking zone into turn 1, and as we said at the start, it's the second longest run from pole into turn 1, so a fair bit of slipstreaming, and you can pick up an overspeed, but nobody's really slowing down into that corner. So it's all about bravery and just trying to leave as much space as you can for the other drivers.
Absolutely, and in terms of bravery, Spike certainly got some of that on at the moment, setting a 1:31.9 as our first fastest lap. Of course, that takes into account the slow start rather than having a flying lap. So expect that time to come down at the end of this lap, but they were using the overtake there, we could see from the off-board shot that we were on with them down towards 130R. So they're clearly trying to build up that 1 second gap to get away from Fraser before the DRS is enabled at the start of the next lap. It won't then really be utilized until the start of lap number 4 because of the fact that there's only the one section on this particular straight. We'll have to wait and see how things go for them, because of course right now that gap is only half a second or so. So Fraser definitely in a good position to fight back here against Spike. Major Castleman currently in the melee as well with everybody else. Things apart from that turn 1 incident where we've now got Immigration, Raptor and Rizzo way off the back of the field, and everybody else still within about a second of one another. It looks like everybody's gotten away rather cleanly. Again, putting that incident to one side, and things also looking as though it's going to be a good race here. We're not seeing anybody really spacing out and any big groups forming between drivers or so. So it could be that whilst the qualifying pace is a little bit more disparate in terms of the gaps between everybody, in terms of race pace, things seem to be pretty good so far.
The field looks very, very close at the moment as the fastest lap just keeps tumbling down with going to Charlie Tibbles with a 31.3. I think that was about as fast as the Division 3 fastest lap. So you were asking earlier, Dan, what's the difference in pace, and that's it. They're already on the Division 3 pace, 3 laps in. The main thing for these drivers now is going to be trying to protect your tyres through Sector 1. So difficult to overtake, and unless the car in front of you is so much slower, it's not really worth risking it, and just trying to focus on getting a good exit out of either the hairpin or out of Spoon or out of the Casino Triangle chicane at the end of the lap to overtake. They're probably the best overtaking points on this track.
Absolutely. So, as we head down into the hairpin, then Luke has started to drop off the back of Elliott just up ahead of them. And that's going to leave them vulnerable because, of course, when everybody is so close together up ahead, it does mean that the possibility of a DRS train forming might end up happening. And then the extra speed that everybody carries as a result of having the DRS means that they start to get away from you. And it becomes all the more difficult to get onto the back of that train and start fighting with people. So Luke is going to need to get the hammer down here and try and close in on their rivals over the course of this and the next lap. All the while, they're going to have to deal with the advancing Timalele behind in the Aston Martin. So, as far as the incidents up and down the field are concerned, we had that issue at turn number 1 where we had a few cars from the midfield down getting a bit of, a bit feisty with one another, and a couple of instances of contact and things like that. People have to resort to the gravel or the grass in order to keep the car going. But nobody out of this race just yet. So everything's still to play for. And if you are one of the guys at the back of the field, like Immigration, Raptor and Rizzo, for example, then bolt on a set of hard tyres, try and go out as long as possible, and then if there's a late race safety car, you're back in it. So we'll keep an eye on those guys as well. Fraser is a driver that we're also keeping an eye on right now, because they're now within 4/10 of Spike up at the front. And things are very close between those two in particular. And MJ Povey is now just starting to lose a little bit of pace to them as well. About 1 second gap now forming between Fraser and Povey. And Chibbles has been able to regain their time that they'd lost on Povey up until that point. Although through the hairpin there, it seems like Povey is taking that much quicker than Fraser did.
Yeah, it's a really bumpy track overall, especially down into that hairpin. And so if you can get the braking nailed on that, you can gain quite a lot of time. There's a virtual safety car out, as it looks like Raptor is spun back towards the tail end of the field. See if I can get him on screen in just 1 second. He's lost his entire front wing, and he's going to have quite the hard time limping his way back around. We'll jump up to the front, see if any of these drivers decide to come in for the cheap pit stop. Spike is in. Does the rest of the field follow him in? It's kind of the window where you can get the mediums if you stretch them. The hards might have been the better choice there, but it looks like just about everybody's staying out. Major Castleman, the first car to stay out on track, inheriting the lead now.
Absolutely. So, yep, people all jumping on to get some new tyres on the car. We've got Major Castleman and Screeper, of course. Screeper on that alternate strategy. Now the flags go green again, so they can go back to full pace. And that means that Screeper and Castleman can now just get moving a bit quicker whilst all those former leaders are still in the pits. Ultimately, I think it's still going to be a net gain in terms of time for the leaders, or former leaders, I should say. But for now, Major Castleman now leads this race in the Ferrari.
Yeah, and at probably lap 6, as we got another yellow flag in sector 1, probably lap 6 or 7 is when the medium tyres will start to be faster than the old soft tyres, so that's also worth keeping in mind. So Castleman and Screeper and everybody who hasn't pitted need to go off into the distance as fast as they can do to try and make up for the time that they've lost effectively for not pitting under the virtual safety car.
Yeah, and Booth lost a few
so.
positions because of him and Charlie Chibbles double stacking in that strategy choice. So maybe an opportunity for them to have split the strategy, but Booth was right up behind Charlie Chibbles before that and is now about 3 places back from where he was.
Interesting. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, both of you, for the insight. As far as what we're seeing on screen at the moment, then, we've got Spike now chasing down after back row. The gap at the start of this lap was about 5 seconds. It's now 3 seconds as they come towards the end of it. So clearly Spike, man on a mission on those fresh medium tyres versus back rows now 6-lap-old hard tyres. Or 5-lap-old, I should say, and that's going to be a hell of a task to try and keep Spike of all the drivers behind you when they have a tyre advantage, and younger tyres at that as well. But up at the front, Screeper now leads this race because Major Castleman has decided to pit, and they've tumbled down the order as a result, all the way down to P11. At the moment, I believe they've come back out the pits now. Yes, they have. So things are looking not great for the Ferrari driver anymore. They've dropped 10 positions just from that one pit stop, and I think I'm right in saying, unless I've remembered this wrong, that they have, yeah, there you go. On the screen there is the graphic to tell you that they've dropped down from their original grid position. I wish I could tell you how many positions it was, but my internet and my breaking laptop means that I can't stream this in high enough quality to be able to tell you the number. So that's everything that is going on at the moment. 1.5 seconds separates Spike from back row now. So that march is still very strong for Spike, but it's slowed down ever so slightly on this lap. So that sheen of the new tyres has now phased out for them.
That's true, but the medium tyre is such a durable tyre that you might gain like a couple of tenths or something like that with the new tyre, but I was setting fastest laps on basically the 20th lap of running the tyres, so I don't really think you've got anything to worry with about the performance of the tyre until you get to beyond 50% wear oil, something like that. As we see, Fraser's just set a new fastest lap. Correct me. Charlie Chibbles has just set a new fastest lap now with a 30.9 on the medium tyres, so they're looking very racy. As Spike will be trying to overtake back row. He'll be very brave to do it into the S's.
I was going to say, yeah, into the S's. I mean, I know that Spike is desperate to get by, but I don't think they're going to find a way through here, although, that being said, it has been done before. Remember, years and years ago now, Daniel Ricciardo in the Red Bull was able to make it happen in damp conditions at Suzuka on the curbs through the S's there, but this is what Spike was probably fearing. This man that we're on board with now, Fraser, has now closed right up to the back of them whilst they have been stuck behind the slow-moving car. And look at this! Move to the inside, and Fraser's got 2 in 1! Brilliant move! Overtake of the season, surely! And Fraser makes a fantastic move up the inside of both Spike and back row. Spike has been able to get by back row as well in that corner, presumably round the outside. But look at this, that change in the effective net lead of this race, with Fraser now ahead of Spike.
Well,
Brilliant
back row essentially left the door open for his teammate. He did a great job to hold Spike's charges off through the S's and then made Spike go the long way around in the hairpin, although Spike is all over the back of Fraser now. It looks like he's going to try and make a dive into the chicane. Side by side they go, not quite able to get the move done, but can he get the traction down and get the DRS run?
The better line out of the chicane, then out of the exit, and with the benefit of DRS, as you're rightly saying, it looks like that whilst that was a very well coordinated move by AlphaTauri, it looks like the Mercedes, yes, moves back up ahead. Spike retakes the effective race lead, and now they're right behind their teammate. Now, will Max play ball here? Will Max get out of the way of his teammate and hold up Fraser? That's something we've got to wait and see. Luke sets a new fastest lap of this race with a 1:30.7, and we've got yellow flags at the end of Sector 3, start of Sector 1, but it looks like everything is fine and cleared up again now. So, we continue racing here at Suzuka, and this brilliant battle that we've been seeing will continue, I'm sure, for the rest of this race. It depends, again, as I say, how compliant these cars are ahead of Spike in terms of getting out of their way, or whether they're going to fight and defend the position. Despite the fact, of course, they'll be on much older and slower tyres than the Mercedes driver. MJ Povey is the car we're currently on board with now, and through all of that scuffling and cavawing between Spike and Fraser, it means that Povey's now gotten back into a position where they might be able to pick up some of the pieces if these guys end up having a fight. Immigration has retired from the session at the end of the S's. Oh dear, or have they? Or have they indeed? There's a slow-moving dot on the map at the exit of the S's. That's why I thought it may well have been Immigration, but possibly not. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. But Spike then is now right up behind his teammate. Max is not getting out of the way. And so Max making life a bit more difficult than needs be for his teammate. At least he'll now be giving Spike the DRS down the start-finish straight here. But if he resists down the start-finish straight, if he doesn't keep off the clean line, it's just going to give Spike even more problems. He moves back to the racing line. And now Spike has the inside. How is this going to happen? The two Mercedes drivers go side by side, and the AlphaTauri is trying to sniff through as well. I don't think Fraser's been able to do it. No, he hasn't. And now Max is trying to find his teammate. It means he's now lost the position to Fraser. Max has lost 2 positions in 2 corners, and Fraser now continues unimpeded chasing their teammate Spike.
Yeah, Max is on those mediums that he started the race on, so starting to feel a little bit of age there with the heavier fuel. As now MJ Povey looking to the inside. Oh, big snap of oversteers. Povey's on the curbs, somehow kept from just spearing off into the barriers and the gravel, but that's going to cost him a significant amount of time as he's getting himself back up to speed and probably some very warm tires.
Very warm indeed, and I'm imagining that their trousers will be quite warm as well after an incident like that. So Charlie Chibbles takes the position away from MJ Povey after their mistake, and Max then is the next driver in Charlie Chibbles' sight. Will they be able to get by a bit easier than the drivers that we've been watching so far? Well, we'll find out in just a few moments' time, I'm sure. A good opportunity here on the run up towards 130R. Will we see a Alonso Schumacher-style move down here? I think we might, but it's a bit more conventional. Up the inside goes Charlie Chibbles. Will he be able to keep that momentum going? It looks like no. It looks like Max may have hung it all the way around the outside. Now to the inside. inside in that chicane, but no, Chibbles has swung it all the way around the outside, and they are now up into P5, effective P3 in this race, but they are going to have to defend. There's only 1.5 tenths between them and Max as they head down the DRS straight. Max will have that DRS, and now into turn 1 we go. Max retakes the position, and he slows up on the entry to the corner, and there's a bit of a tap between Charlie Chibbles and Max there. I don't think Chibbles is expecting Max to slow up quite so much there, but as it is, it doesn't look like there's any damage on the Williams, so we continue with things as they were. Max P5, Charlie Chibbles P6. All the while, this is allowing Spike and Fraser to just get up the road. And look at that, Screeper! Screeper, no! Screeper from the lead of the race has now binned it all on their own. And they are now just having to do the Mr. Bean, or not Mr. Bean, Austin Powers style turn and get the car moving again. They're now on the inside as much faster cars are approaching and having to go to their inside. Look at that there, Timalele throwing one down the inside with the slow-moving Alpine. Oh dear, Screeper, we know that you're quick, we know that you can use an alternate strategy incredibly well, but you need to keep it on the road, oh dear. Well, that means now that this fight here gets a little bit less interesting, in fact, because we've now just got Cavino up ahead as the only other driver,
Screeper
and
is out.
Screeper also
Screeper's out
retired
in a
from the
full
session.
safety car. Screeper lost control through the hairpin, it would seem. That's where his dot is stopped, and a full safety car has been called. We'll see what changes that makes to the strategy. The field's still pretty bunched up.
It's still pretty bunched up, but Cavino has a good 7 seconds lead on those guys ahead. There they go, into the pits then. And that's a set of, what is that there, hard tires? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, it's going to
there?
have to be the hard tires because he started on the medium tires, was going long in that first stint. So this is actually not a great time for that safety car to come out for him, but it looks like he is one of the only ones of the front pack to really take advantage of that early pit stop. There's a couple other drivers in as well making some changes.
There we go then. So Cavino in the McLaren then is one to watch for the rest of this race. They're not going to have such severe tyre drop-off as those ahead of them may well do. Of course, behind the safety car here, it means they will get to save those tyres of theirs. So that's that. It's a double Alpine retirement in this race, and commiserations to them, of course. Riso continues to circulate around as the last of the current running cars, but I have a funny feeling that they are going to be a lap down and therefore not able to take advantage of this safety car period. If anything, it's going to now solidify their position at the back of the field, unless, of course, no, there we go. Their delta has now jumped all the way down. So, actually, they may well be on the lead lap. I certainly hope they are, because that's going to give them an opportunity to have a bit more of an entertaining race. I remember racing around Suzuka myself at some point in seasons past, and it was a bit of a lonely race for the vast majority of it. So, it's never fun when you have a league race like that, and you want to be having the battles. That's why we do this. We'd like to have clean racing between like-minded people, but it doesn't always happen that way, of course. So here's the order then of your race so far, as Raptor and Riso also pit at the end of that one. So they're now going to be able to race round at whatever speed they like, get to the back of the train, and have nice warm tyres as well. So expect to see them have a bit of action with those guys towards the back end of the field, like Booth, Elliott, Chibbs, etc. But your order is Spike leading this race from Fraser, then Spike's teammate Max is in P3 at the moment, with Povey just behind them. Dolphy, then Castleman, then King Bart, Cavino, Massimo Romeo, Timalele, Luke, Back Row, Chibbs, Elliott, Booth, Raptor, and Riso. So there we go. That is the order. Now, guys, whilst we've got this sort of lower tempo part of the race, shall we say, we've got this opportunity to just have a moment, just breathe, take everything in. Who would we be eyeing as potential favourites for the rest of this race now? We've got another 15 laps to go still. We've not even reached that halfway point yet. What do we think in terms of the strategies that people are leaning into and where people are on circuit, that sort of thing? Who's one to watch?
For your top three, I think it's going to be Spike, Fraser. You know, they'll probably run off into the distance. MJ Povey has got to try and clear Max as soon as he can do, without sending it down the inside. We know that dive bombing, should I say, we know that Max is a very tough defender and very difficult to pass. That's not meant in a bad way. He's just very difficult to pass. He knows how to defend. And that's really going to be the thing that's going to hurt MJ Povey, I think, from catching Fraser and Spike. Unfortunately for Cavino, probably if they've got another set of medium tyres, is it worth just pitting again, so that they won't be on these hard tyres, because the mediums will be maybe a full second a lap faster than the hard tyres, and the mediums will easily get to the end here. So probably that's what I'd be thinking of doing, because otherwise you're just going to go backwards on those hard tyres.
Absolutely. And Sean, what do you think? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just to echo what Stark was saying, he's right on about the fact that Povey needs to clear Max as soon as he can, because Max has been running those extra laps on the heavier fuel, having started those tires. We saw how fast Spike and Fraser were able to close up to Max and then try and get that move done, but you also saw how hard it was to actually get the move completed at that stage. If you can just get a good exit out of the final chicane, there's such a short DRS zone that it's really difficult to make that overtake stick unless you can get a really good launch. Now, that being said, Povey, as of last week, showed some very good talent in the wet, so is a driver I would expect to have very good control of his traction and get very good launches out of corners.
Absolutely. Well, we will wait and see. We've got at least one more lap with the safety car, and we've now got Raptor has been able to make their way to the back of the train, and Riso as well has elected to obviously go for that other stop that we saw earlier on. They've now got tyres of roughly similar age to that of Raptor. They'll come across the line in just a few moments' time, and I'm sure that will take up to 3 laps. Yep, there you go. So it does. So that they will catch the back of this train, and everybody will be on the same lap. But look at this then. We've got Backrow, Chibs, Elliott, Booth, all on fresh medium tyres. Now, at this stage of the race, I mean, if we assume that the safety car is coming in at the end of this lap, so we've got then lap 14 to lap 27, so a good 13 laps or so worth of racing to go at that stage. Would you expect fresh mediums to get that far and be able to be pushed?
Yeah, you can absolutely push on them, but the pace differential isn't particularly huge. Japan runs the hardest compounds of tires, the C1, the C2, C3, so even the mediums are extremely durable, and typically towards the end of the race, your lap times are dictated more by your fuel level coming down rather than the actual wear of a set of tires you put on even on lap 7 or 8. So, I mean, as Stark was saying in his race, those lap times just keep falling as you get to that late stage of the race as the car gets lighter. The tires don't fall off faster than the amount you gain by having a lighter car.
Absolutely. So there we go then. So during this phase then of the race, everybody's going to be saving fuel, of course. So I'm sure we'll see people getting themselves, if they were previously running a fuel deficit, then that will be a godsend to them, I'm sure. But if they were already running plus on fuel, as the safety car is now going in on this lap, then that is going to be a nasty surprise for them, I'm sure. And we'll just make that car heavier, as you say. So, Spike backs the field up then as we get ready to go racing once more in Suzuka. And I'm looking forward to this one. It should be very entertaining. So, Spike leads them through the chicane, still going slow. He hasn't accelerated just yet, but now coming out the corner he goes, and I think he's caught Fraser napping there. That's a good launch from Spike. A good 8.5 tenths now of a second between Spike and Fraser. And Fraser seems to have responded with a bit of ERS, but then Spike does so as well. Look at this, Max right up behind Fraser. Fraser having to defend down into turn number 1 from the Mercedes driver. And that has allowed Spike to just gallop away rather. And what a brilliant example of a race restart there from Spike. Good racing from them, and good racing from everybody else, it seems, as everybody seems to have gotten through the first few turns and through the S's unscathed.
Yeah, but then you see the problems that Max is starting to have with those aging tires. You know, he gets right onto the gearbox of Fraser, forces him to defend even into turn 1, but by the time they get through the S's, he's already a second off the back of him.
Yeah, those mediums will just, they won't give up per se, but they just lose a bit of performance compared to the tyres around them that are so much younger. I mean, MJ Povey's on 5 lap younger medium tyres, and you know the race will come to Max in the end when he has to stop and put on soft tyres. But yeah, this isn't the point of the race for Max now, so he needs to really try and focus on not losing as much time as possible, but also trying to hold up MJ Povey for his teammate Spike.
Well, it looks like that's not going to be happening anytime soon. They go all the way off the circuit trying to defend their position. I don't think this would be a legal defense here. They go back up the inside into the chicane. It makes for excellent entertainment and viewing, but I think, oh no, look at that! And it's a big half spin for Max, and now I think that's going to be an involuntary pit stop there for them. I don't think they were intending to pit on this lap, but they're so far down the road that it's well, that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. But a bit of oversteer on exit there, and look at this. Spike has now lost all that time they gained. Look at this now. Luke up the inside in the S's. Look at that. A Red Bull managed to do it in real life, and they've done it in the virtual world as well. Luke goes up to P9 in this race, overtaking Timalele, despite the fact they've got much older tyres than the Aston Martin. And it's a good bit of fighting from them so far this race, coming back through the order after the Turn 1 incident, and back up into the points then, up to P9, and Elliott gets a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. So, in terms of track limits, that's something we did discuss briefly during qualifying earlier on. Stark, in terms of that then, do you think that drivers are at particular risk of getting time penalties? Is this going to be a Canada situation where towards the end of the race we start to see more and more of them coming on the board?
It won't be anywhere near as bad as Canada, but certainly you want to try and avoid as many time penalties as possible. It's cost me at least 2 wins, from what I can tell in Division 3, so, you want to try and keep it on the track, but it's definitely nowhere near as bad as Canada is in terms of track limit penalties. As Charlie Chibbles is looking for a move on back row there to the chicane. Will he think?
Sniffing all the way around the back of that AlphaTauri into the chicane they go then. DRS has now been enabled, but I don't think that they will get it for these cars who've yet to cross the line. So it's just a straight up drag race now between these two, using the slipstream. Charlie Chibbles goes to the outside. It's the cleaner line. They're going to have a bit more grip round there and round the outside. Brilliant move by Charlie Chibbles up into P11 there with those much younger medium tyres than those ahead of them. Same age, of course, as back rows, but look at that now. Charlie Chibbles is going to be able to start rocketing up this field, I'm sure. Look at this as well. Everybody's still within a very, very small amount of time between one another, except for Povey to Fraser. That's everybody except for Max, of course, at the back of the field. So Povey needs to get the foot down and get chasing on after those top two if they want to have anything to do with potentially winning another race here in the FRS. Otherwise, it's going to be either Spike or Fraser at this stage, you must say. Cavino has also still got themselves stuck up behind King Bart. Now, with King Bart on 10-lap-old medium tyres and Cavino on what are essentially fresh hard tyres, I would have expected McLaren to tell them to swap positions at this stage.
Yeah, it might have been an interesting strategy call to swap them around, to let Cavino try and gallop away as much as he can while those hard tires are a little bit stickier. But I mean, it's so tight in the midfield there. You run the risk when you swap somebody around of just the other cars attacking. We've seen it already a couple of times today, as it looks like back at the back there, Elliott and back row fighting in the background, coming through the chicane on the curbing there. It's so tough to get the throttle down. Who's got the DRS? They both have the DRS. Straight drag race down into turn 1.
And Aston versus AlphaTauri. It looks like Elliott has this one. Yes, indeed. And oh, look at this now. They're under threat behind the AlphaTauri from the other Williams, this time of Booth. Booth has been able to make it. It looks like they're going side by side up into the S's. Now, no, Booth pulls ahead. Booth pulls ahead of back row. And look at that there. That's some brilliant racing. Big crash. Big crash in the back of shot there. I think that was Riso. I think that was them going off the circuit. It looked like a white car. Yep, there they are, going very slowly indeed. And oh well, at least the race is still going. We don't have another safety car or virtual safety car, but things it did not work out for them there at all. Went backwards into the barrier there. What could have happened in turn 1 there for them?
It's a strange place to lose the car actually there, especially to go backwards. Maybe they just took a little bit too much curb into turn 1, the inside curve, but it's a strange one, is that? It's good though that they haven't got any damage, that they're able to keep going.
Yeah, and while we were on screen with that fight where
stuff.
Booth and Elliott were overtaking back row, Charlie Chibbles managed to get through Timalele, so now he's got Luke ahead of him and is back up into the points.
Yeah, good drive from Chibbles so far. Have been able to take advantage of those fresh medium tyres, still within the queue, and therefore being able to stick with the pack and be able to put them to good use, it seems so far. And on a circuit where it is notoriously difficult to overtake, we're about to see another one. No, not this time. MJ Povey hangs it all the way around the outside of Dolphy, who had it up there inside into turn number 1, and manages to keep a hold of P3. Meanwhile, P1 and P2 are just sailing away into the distance, it looks like. And Major Castleman here in the Ferrari is having a sniff at the back of Dolphy here, thinking, you know what, I could have a bit of that. I could get some moves done here. And, oh no, big slide from the McLaren. That's King Bart. King Bart out of the race. King Bart out of the race at the end of the S's there. And that is undeniably a full safety car. Yes, there you go then. 5-second time penalty as well for Elliott for having a severe collision with King Bart. I assume that's a severe collision with the already retired King Bart. They were nowhere near one another on circuit when that was all happening. And, well, there we go then. Full safety car. Spike has somehow been able to pull a 1.2 second gap out on Fraser throughout this period here. It might be that they've gone beyond their delta and now need to give some time back. Of course, we don't know that, but they will in the game. And yeah, there you go. That time falling back down to about half a second, about where it was or so. Now, question here is, who's going to blink first? Because if Spike goes into the pits, then Fraser could follow, or they could stay out and hope that they've got the tyres to get to the end of this race at a competitive enough pace where Spike being held up would then be... oh, look at that, really straddling the line. I think that was a bit of a feint to see what Fraser would do there from Spike. As it is, everybody behind seems to be carrying on as well. Doesn't look like anybody is going to be diving into the pits for a new set of tyres. No, I lie. Booth and Back Row and Luke all decide to do just that. Max as well, of course, is going to have... this is going to be like a godsend for the... Well, it's a bit of a double-edged sword for them, actually, really, to be honest, because if they'd been able to stick it out on the mediums just a few extra laps and then that incident happened, then it would have been the perfect time for the softs. But as it is, it just means that Max will be able to get themselves round onto the back of the queue and not have to suffer all too much. So, in terms of that, we've also got in chat, we've got Kaibo saying, hello, I'm new here. Hello, Kaibo. Welcome to the FRS. Dolphy then has been able to get themselves up into P8. The chat is all saying, Dolphy? I don't know what's going on. I don't know what is happening at all times here, people. You need to give me a bit more context to just Dolphy. Charlie Chibbles, as pointed out by Herringsword, not by Herringsword, sorry, and by Nattrack, in a very good position now on those much fresher tyres. They've got Massimo Romeo ahead of them. Cavino, Major Castleman, Povey, Fraser, Spike. You know, these guys are fast. But are they, however many laps older tyres fast? That's going to be the real question. Charlie Chibbles on 7-lap-old medium tyres, and everybody else on near as damn it, double the age medium tyres, except for Cavino, whose hard tyres are the same age. So therefore, you've got to wonder whether or not, given that we've had one safety car and now another, will Chibs be in a position where the mediums that they have will still be pacey enough to be able to get by Cavino relatively easily, or will that become a bit of a stalemate between those two drivers and we end up seeing them getting stuck fighting one another and not able to move further up the field on those drivers with the aged tyres? We'll have to find out.
Yeah, it's an interesting proposition. Brand new out of the box, the hard tires are roughly a half a second or so slower than the medium tires, but when you start to get some age into those, obviously that difference starts to sweep towards the hard tires, as Povey takes a bit of an interesting line coming through the final corner. Maybe just was checking his MFD and had to make a dodging action, as I have lost connection to the session.
Yep, I lost the stream there. I think the stream is back up.
Stand by. My internet decided that it wanted to reset itself.
What on earth has just happened? Can you hear me? Hello?
I can hear you, yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes, yeah.
Okay, give me a
what on
second.
earth just...
My internet just did like a half reset.
Game.
At least it's joining a safety car. We are still live as well.
Yep. Technical difficulties, just giving you the behind-the-scenes action that we always want to give all the time. So there you go. Enjoy.
Absolutely.
We're back.
We are back. Thank goodness for that. And I'm also very thankful that I didn't swear at all because of technical issues. But there we go. Everything is still going. Thank you very much, everybody, for your patience through our technical issues there. I don't know exactly what happened because it felt like I had some sort of internet issue myself, but then also Sean seems to have, and there's all sorts of things going on, basically, and I'm not entirely certain. But what I do know is we are back, and everything is working, so that's the main thing. We apparently also have no
in-game audio at the moment. I am trying to get that back.
Excellent. Well, Sean will keep on working on that, and hopefully we should get that in no time at all.
There we go. We should be good now.
We should be good now. Chat, tell us. As the safety car is in this lap, do we have sound again? Because we would very much like to know. So, as everybody gets ready to get going once again, then Spike leads the way from Fraser, MJ Povey, Major Castleman, and Cavino as your top 5. And now, will Spike try the same restart technique they did last time? It certainly looks like it. They go through the final chicane very slowly indeed, and then away they go. So, it looks like less of a convincing restart then for Spike this time versus the previous one. But Fraser probably still not close enough to mount a challenge down into turn number 1. So we head down towards turn number 1 now, and things are still very close between all of these cars. Look at this. Povey looks very racy all of a sudden. They are right up behind Fraser there, and look to have the car just hooked up a little bit more through the first couple of corners. But now Fraser seems to be stretching their legs once more. Everything is as it was then. It looks like we've also got Dolphy, Timolele, and Elliott all going to the pits now for some reason, despite the fact the safety car has just come in. So we'll have to wait and see as to whether or not there was an incident there, perhaps, which we may have missed. But as it is, we've got these guys still thundering down towards turn number 11, the hairpin. And MJ Povey then, the driver on screen at the moment, is sticking within 5/10 of a second rather. Fraser just up ahead, and if they're able to keep this going for the next lap and a half or so, then they will be able to get DRS at the end of the following lap. So things are still very, very close between everybody in this field at the moment. I've lost the stream. What's happened there? And there we go. I'm back there.
He's in P4 now. He was in P11 after he pitted. So an amazing comeback drive for Major Castleman there.
Certainly is, yeah. Very good drive from them. Charlie Chibbles, of course, another driver in a very, very hot position at the moment. Currently P7 with young tyres on the car. And they are right up the back now of Massimo Romeo. Let's have a look at that then. Just up ahead of this driver, Booth here. Booth sets a new fastest lap. Of course, they will be one to watch as the race unfolds. But look at this. Charlie Chibbles now up the inside in turn number 1. Will it work? No, not on this occasion. But through turn number 2, they keep the pressure on the Alfa Romeo. And now into the S's they go. And it looks like it's not going to happen for them. But they've certainly been able to spook Massey enough where they will have lost their DRS to the car ahead. So expect to see them a bit of a sitting duck towards the end of this one. But keep an eye on Booth, who, of course, on those fresh soft tyres, things are looking very good at the moment as well. We've also got a massive old sub-bomb going on in the chat from AWD Turbo Guy. Thank you very much, AWD. We've now got a bunch of new subscribers in the chat, and we watch now as the rest of this race continues to unfold. Luke then on those fresh tyres as well, looking very competitive at the moment. They're right on the back of Raptor at the moment. Can we maybe see the tyres, Sean? That way we can see what's going on, who's competing with who in terms of the overall pace there. There we go. So Raptor should be able to make a move happen on Max relatively easily at this stage, given the offset in tyre life. And of course, with them being soft tyres, that difference in tyre life is exaggerated all the further. But it looks like Luke might have a move on Raptor in the running at the moment. 1.5 tenths between them. Raptor also now 1.5 tenths from Max. Things very, very close between these guys. They head down now towards the chicane. Max defends to the inside, and the Ferrari tries to get up and under. It looks like it might have worked as they go down onto the start-finish straight. They will have the DRS, but Max will not, crucially. Luke will also have the DRS, and they're so close to the back of the Ferrari that we might see 2 positions lost by Max into turn number 1. No, we don't. It looks like it's just going to be the Ferrari alongside the Mercedes. The Mercedes goes all the way off to the outside of the curb, and that's another move there from Raptor. Raptor up into the points now, and Luke just having to bide their time and wait a little bit longer for their opportunity to come along.
Yeah, Max definitely getting to the drop-off phase of where those soft tire lives are. Lap 7, 8, you start to lose some serious pace on heavier fuels. He might be getting a little bit of extra love from from having a lighter car, but it's definitely going to be a significant performance differential between those two now. But Boof has now closed up to within a second of his teammate.
Sorry to interrupt you, Sean. If we go back to that battle, go back to Luke there. Go back to Luke. If we see them, look at this. Round the outside in the hairpin after a mistake from Max. They went onto the grass through the Degners, and that now means that Max loses another position, but they might lose another indeed to Riso in a moment as well. Look at them now powering down towards Spoon. Things are very close indeed between these drivers. Max is trying to have a look up the inside. It doesn't come off for them there. It's not like Sebastian Vettel a few years ago in the Ferrari. And now things are looking good for Luke. Luke's starting to stretch their legs and get chasing on after Raptor once again. But look at this, Riso very close to the back of Max. And now the Haas is just getting closer and closer all the time. We'll keep an eye on the gap there. 1/10 of a second between them. But now look at this, Major Castleman down the start-finish straight. They're very close to the back of NJ Povey, who's still going to have the DRS, of course. But things very close indeed. 5-second time penalty for Max for corner cutting there. And that, if they continue to have a position on Riso there as a result of that time penalty, then I think that's going to be something for the stewards to investigate after this race. They're now right on the back of Luke as a result of the 3 time penalties that they've now just accumulated as well. So that's an awful lot of penaltyage in the last few corners for Max. So things not looking good for them. And their chances of finishing in the points in this race, if they're carrying at least, what must that have been, 13 seconds worth of penalties just applied then. Yep, there you go, 13 seconds. So not good for Max at all, as we watch the Ferrari chasing the Alfa Romeo here up the sharp end of the grid.
It was a disastrous few corners really for Max there. Unfortunately, they'll only lose 1 place to Riso, given that Tim Alele is 20 seconds behind. I think just after the safety car came in, they had to pit, as we see Booth overtaking Cavino.
Brilliant bit of racing there up into the entry of Spoon. It's not somewhere where you tend to see the moves that often, and when you do, they, like I mentioned earlier on, you can get a Sebastian Vettel moment where he got spun around.
Riso is out, and there's a safety car called. Riso has crashed coming out of the hairpin area, and now there's another safety car called. So now surely the front runners, are they going to come in? No, Spike stays out. So does the rest of the front running group. All the way down, Charlie Chibbles is out. Cavino surely has to take the stop here. It looks like he is indeed into the pit lane. Yeah, Cavino getting off those hard tires. You could just see the closing speed that Booth had on him on those fresh tires. So softs with only really going to be about 1 flying lap left in this one.
Absolutely, yeah, and things very close. Sorry, go on, Star.
I was going to say that they'll go for the, for the fastest lap there. They'll probably be able to overtake Max, I'd have guessed, because they'll be right on the back of Max, and they'll have.
Are you sure about that?
Well, with how short the safety, how few laps are left, they may not bunch the field entirely up. They may call the safety car in this lap, so they've still got some time, although if they are able to close up that gap, they will be arriving with very, very hot tires and ready to go.
That's a good point. I think the safety car has to come in this lap. I don't think it will stay out until lap 26. I think it's hard for them to come in 2 laps from the end.
So we've got the safety car coming in then at the end of this lap apparently, and if that does happen, then Stark officially prophet of the channel. And but regardless, we've got this fight for the win then. Things very close indeed. These guys don't have any penalties either, so it's a straight up fight between them, unless of course one of them accrues a penalty, of course. This will be massively benefiting Spike as well, because it means there's going to be no more DRS for this race. It means they're going to be able to charge up their battery as well, and it looks like things are looking very good for them to potentially take the win on this one. Booth has a little bit of a mountain to climb, to be honest. They have cars ahead of them on much older tyres and on harder tyres as well, but a lot of the mileage those tyres have done have been behind either virtual or actual safety cars. So I don't think that we're going to see a massive difference in performance that we may expect if we did see cars on 19 race lap worn medium tyres versus 7 race lap worn softs. But the safety car is in then, so profit start confirmed. And, well, we'll now wait and see what happens then. And Spike gets them going nice and slowly through the final chicane once again, and it looks like they've just been able to go once more, and we are racing again here at Suzuka, and it's close. It's very close between Spike and Fraser down the start-finish straight. It's 2.5 tenths. It's now nearly 2 tenths as they head down into turn number 1. It looks like Spike is safe once again, because turn 1, whilst it is an opportunity for an overtake, it is not a big, heavy braking zone like some other corners at the end of a straight on the calendar. So Spike continues to lead the race then, from Fraser, from Povey, from Castleman, then Romeo, then Chibs, then Booth. Then from back row, we have then Raptor, Cavino, Luke, Max, Dolphy, Timalele, and Elliot. Max has fallen back down out of the top 10, away from Cavino there, who we expected would end up having to have a fight with them in order to get by and get into the top 10 to make that attempt at a fastest lap, which is what we think they're trying to do, be effective. But as it is, Cavino now just needs to be able to get that lap in, but with the proximity of all the traffic around them, I doubt that they're going to have that opportunity to do so. Look at this then. Luke has been able to make a move up the inside of Cavino. They're caught them napping into the hairpin, and now Luke is the one in P10 and Cavino down in P11. It's absolute calamity for the McLaren driver at the moment. So Booth then, the driver that we thought may well end up getting a march on everybody here, not close enough to the back of their teammate, who is very close to the back of Massimo Romeo. With Major Castleman having gotten by them earlier on in this race, Massey having a tough old time, it seems. Bit of bruising and battering during qualifying, and then in the race they've been victim of some bad luck. But we'll wait and see then down the start-finish straight. Will Charlie Chibbles be able to get a good move on here? It looks like it might well happen. There's only 2 tenths between them as they head down the straight. 1.5 tenths between Charlie Chibbles and Massimo Romeo as they head down towards turn number 1. We're watching the battle up at the front here. But now look at this. Charlie Chibbles versus Massimo Romeo. It's not a move into turn 1 and 2 here. And into the S's they go on the final lap. And it looks like on this occasion, Chibs may have run out of road to be able to get that move done. And they're going to be trying all they might throughout this final lap here to get something done. Moreover, for the top end as well, we've got Castleman and Povey very close together. We've got then Spike and Fraser very close together. If anybody makes a mistake on this final lap, it will be catastrophic with how close the field is at the moment. Spike then heading into the hairpin. They have done everything right so far today, except for, of course, that moment earlier on when they got held up by back row. Excuse me, by back row rather, and Fraser managed to take the position from them briefly, but they were able to get it back, and since then they've looked a commanding tour de force here in Suzuka. Down now towards 130R, one of the final few corners on this circuit. Spike continues to lead the way. Nobody else in the field is getting close to an overtake at the moment, and neither is Fraser. Fraser's very far off the back of Spike here, and unless Spike makes an enormous, horrendous mistake in these last couple of corners, it looks like Spike in the Mercedes ends their podium drought, ends their win drought from the first 2 rounds, and will win the Japanese Grand Prix.
Just a commanding drive from Spike. It looks like Max has made a mistake late on. He's got no front wing left on that car. At the restart there, it looked like Max tried to make a move on Raptor and just didn't quite make it stick. And then once you're wrong-footed through the S's with the train just backed up like that, once you're offline, everybody will just breeze right past you before you can even find a place to slot in.
Absolutely, yeah, and that was a fantastic end to the race there. Maybe a little bit anticlimactic in the sense that we didn't really, because Suzuka is such a difficult circuit to overtake on, we didn't really get to see a lot of the moves that we were hoping and expecting for at that stage, but it was still a good race regardless, I think. Maybe not race of the season in PC Division 1, but certainly up there as an entertaining one, I would say. So Spike, then Fraser, and then MJ Povey. That is your podium. Spike is your race winner, the only driver still to have gotten 3 race wins this season, more than 1 race win this season so far, and has now added a 3rd to that tally and extends their championship lead by 7 points over Fraser, who will remain in 2nd place. MJ Povey with the podium there picks up some decent, solid points, and we'll have the rest of the order for you in just a few moments' time. And as we play through the podium animation there, and we'll just wait for things to make their way through. But a faultless race from the top 2, I think it's fair to say. Very, very good racing from them. Very precise in their driving. Didn't see any mistakes from them whatsoever. And look at this then. So, Spike, Fraser, and MJ Povey are your podium today. Then, from 4th down, we have Major Castleman, Massimo Romeo, Charlie Chibbles, Booth, Back Row, Luke, Timalele, Raptor, Cavino, Elliot, Max, and then Dolphy, Riso, King Bart, Screeper, Immigration, and that is the back of the field there. So Immigration and Screeper, Alpine double DNF, King Bart out of this race as well, and then Riso, of course, causing that late race safety car. And as Haringzord pointed out in the chat earlier on, not the first time that a reserve driver has caused a late race safety car. So will that be controversy? I don't know. I don't race in this division. So, with all that being said and done, then everybody, so let's have a think of our closing thoughts here after that race. So, Sean, I'll throw to you first of all. You've been working very hard to bring us the broadcast today, so I feel it's only fair that we get you out of the way first. So, in terms of that one, and the fights that we saw up and down the fields, the different strategies and people electing to go into the pits or stay out. What did you think of it, and who were your real, impressive drivers today?
I mean, Back Row drove a really good race all day today. I mean, came from the back of the field to pick up a solid haul of points. So nothing wrong with what he's done there at all. So a definite result for him. We were definitely confused a little bit about Major Castleman's pit strategy, but it ended up being a good call in the end, as he ended up finishing 4th just behind MJ Povey. So sniffing at a podium when he had started 10th, dropped to 11th after the first pit stop, and then just had a stellar race the rest of the way.
Absolutely, yeah. I would agree with all of that, frankly. Yeah, a good drive from them. And Stark, what did you think of that one?
I loved it. That was, I think, absolutely fantastic. I don't disagree with what you and Sean have said. I think Castleman proved us all wrong, me especially. I didn't understand his pit strategy, but it worked out. He was only, I think, 2/10 off a podium there, so he did a fantastic job of getting up to P4, and Massimo Romeo also in P5, but the top two just looked unbeatable today for me.
Absolutely, yeah. Fantastic driving up and down the field. I think just to add something a little bit different into the conversation, I'll just quickly highlight the performance of Charlie Chibbles. I know that we were joking earlier on in the stream about how I'm partial to him and all this sort of thing, but I think it was a good drive from them today. Got stuck behind MJ Povey for a bit, gambled on a different strategy after the contact with Max. Rather than stay out on the on what we think may have been a broken front wing, just not visible damage. And yeah, it's a good recovery from them, despite the fact that there were a number of safety cars, which, whilst that safety car initially allowed them to get the tyres changed and go for that alternate strategy, that more aggressive approach and try and get the overtakes done, there were then additional safety cars after that, which then slowed that progress down, all the way down. So I think good drive from Charlie Chibbles as well today. So that is our show for this weekend. We thank you very, very much for watching. Next time out, we are going to be at the circuit in Bahrain, where, of course, we will have had the second test, or, well, the second pre-season session of Formula 1 2022, and the first and only official pre-season test for real-life Formula 1, so maybe we will have some sense as to how the real cars will go around Barcelona, but we will be more interested in our cars here in PC Division 1 and across the FRS, of course, as well. My name has been Daniel Gilligan. I have been very, very lucky to be joined by Sean Provenza and Dr. Stark here today. Thank you very, very much for watching, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night.